Welcome to the Explainer. So let's just dive right into this, because today we are embarking on a really grand thought experiment, one that might actually rewrite a lot of what we learned in history class. We're going to explore this bold hypothesis that completely challenges established historical narratives. And surprisingly, it places Jeju Island right at the absolute heart of an ancient, lost civilization network known as Sundaland. It's kind of like a giant puzzle spanning the globe, deep oceans, and thousands of years. I want you to play detective with me for a second here. How exactly do ancient statues carved by supposedly entirely disconnected cultures, we're talking separated by up to 25,000 kilometers of deep, treacherous ocean, how do they end up looking so strangely identical? It's one of those anomalies that literally makes you sit up and pay attention. When we chart global human migration routes using Y chromosome analysis, the standard historical view usually tracks these really slow, localized expansions over millennia. But what if we look at that exact same data from a totally different angle? Some researchers are proposing a radically different idea. What if a vast, advanced, ancient civilization network actually spanned these global routes way before what we consider established history? Like, could these paths have actually been two-way maritime highways for a much older, globalized culture? To piece all of this together, we'll be investigating 5 major clues today. 1. A sudden climate catastrophe. 2. The global statue mystery. 3. Sunken ruins and pottery clues. 4. Shifting seas. And 5. Mythological memories. Starting with number 1. A sudden climate catastrophe, or the Younger Dryas. You know, a lot of ancient cultures have these myths of great floods or world-ending catastrophes, right? Well, science actually backs this up. During the oldest and older Dryas periods, the Earth was in a deep freeze. Summer temperatures were a chilly 8 to 9 degrees Celsius. But then, right around 9000 BC, we hit the Younger Dryas, and suddenly, bam, a violent global climate shift. Temperatures spiked above 11 degrees. Massive ice sheets melted incredibly fast. This wasn't some slow, gradual warming over thousands of years. It was a sudden, rapid event that radically altered the face of the planet. Which brings us to number 2, the global statue mystery, stones across oceans. So if a global cataclysm really happened, what survived the melting ice and the rising waters? Well, when we compare El Fraile from Bolivia to the famous Dolhurabang statues from Jeju Island, and even statues from Bali, Indonesia, the shared motifs are just uncanny. Despite being separated by vast oceans, you'll notice these really distinct goggle-like eyes. And look closely at the hands. They are consistently clasped together right in front of the torso. And the mystery actually stretches even further. That exact same hand placement can be found carved into ancient pillars at Navali Chori in Turkey, which is an incredibly ancient site, and wrapped around a pillar at Tiwanaku in Bolivia. The stylistic choice of those long, wrapping fingers resting over the abdomen is remarkably identical across these totally different continents. Let's step back and look at what we've actually found here. We are looking at statues separated by up to 25,000 kilometers of deep ocean, found in Jeju, Bolivia, Easter Island, and Bali. They've got consistently clasped hands and those distinctive goggle-like eyes. You really have to ask yourself, how could completely independent cultures invent such hyper-specific, identical designs without ever communicating? Well, the hypothesis suggests they didn't. It suggests a shared origin. Let's move on to number 3, sunken ruins and pottery clues, echoes from 8000 BC. Now, to connect these distant dots, researchers aren't just looking on land. We have to shift our focus underwater. Take the famous Yonaguni underwater monument off the coast of Japan. It's highly debated, for sure. One camp argues it's a totally unique landform created by natural ocean tides and tectonic forces. But the other camp strongly argues that these sharp, geometric right angles and terrace steps are artificial structures, remnants of a civilization that was submerged around 8000 BC, right when those sea levels rose dramatically. And that timeline aligns perfectly with some incredible discoveries on dry land, specifically back on Jeju Island. At the Gosanri site on Jeju, researchers unearthed raised pattern pottery dating back to right around 8000 BC. Think about that for a second. A vessel used by people 10,000 years ago. But the true mystery here is actually the design itself. The 8000 BC Gosanri pottery features very distinct 3 horizontal stripes. Now fast forward thousands of years to the Silla Kingdom in Korean history, and their pottery features the exact same 3 horizontal stripe motif. How does a highly specific artistic design just vanish for millennia, only to reappear perfectly intact much later? It really hints at a deep, dormant cultural memory preserving the echoes of an older world. Number 4, shifting seas, the lost continent. To truly understand how all these cultures, statues, and designs could have been connected, we kind of have to throw away our modern globe. We have to look at what the map of the world used to look like before the ice melted. Between 12,000 and 8,000 years ago, the Korean peninsula, Japan, and parts of China were all connected by massive land bridges. The Yellow Sea barely even existed. It was just a sprawling, continuous coastal plain. Then, as the warming melted the ice sheets, the waters rapidly rose. Our current geography only stabilized around 5,000 years ago, completely swallowing those land bridges and severing these lands forever. 345,000. That is the number of square kilometers of continental shelf in the West and South Seas alone that are now totally underwater. To put that into perspective, that is an area 3.5 times the size of current dry land in that region, roughly the size of a modern country like Germany or Japan, just completely erased from the map. When researchers talk about Sundaland or lost ancient networks, this is exactly what they mean: an entire submerged continent that once served as the central hub of a vast human population. And finally, number 5, mythological memories, the 3 divine mountains. Which brings us to our final clue. What if the people who survived this immense flooding didn't just forget? What if ancient texts are actually the fragmented cultural memories of this submerged world? Memories that might even rival the legends of Atlantis or the utopian land of gentlemen. Chinese history is full of ancient emperors obsessed with finding the lost lands of the immortals. The grand historian Sima Qian recorded this really intriguing note. According to legend, these 3 divine mountains lay within the Bohai Sea, and the way to them was not far. But the immortals, fearing the arrival of ships, would raise winds to drive the ships far away. Kings launched massive sea expeditions looking for these mythical lands. But the secret might literally be in the language itself. The text mentions the Bohai Sea. Well, linguistic analysis suggests Bohai is derived from a Siddham word meaning mudflat or tidal flat, so it wasn't originally describing a deep ocean, but rather the massive flooded continental shelf we just talked about. The sea the ancients remembered was a flooded world, the muddy remains of the sunken continent. When scholars map these legendary locations, one of the mythical mountains, Jeju, often associated with that utopian land of gentlemen, maps directly onto Jeju Island. The ancient texts describe a place filled with divine mountains, which perfectly aligns with Jeju's unique landscape of numerous volcanic cones, known as Orium. The mythology effectively points back to Jeju as a surviving, high-ground remnant of this lost, drowned world. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've looked at the identical statues spanning the globe, the underwater structures, the shifting maps of the Younger Dryas, and the ancient memories recorded by historians. The Sundaland hypothesis proposes that Jeju wasn't just some isolated island, but the geographical and cultural center of a sprawling maritime network before the seas rose. So, if the stones, the sunken ruins, and the ancient myths truly align, what else about our human origins is still waiting to be uncovered beneath the waves? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope this sparked your curiosity as much as it did mine. Keep questioning and keep learning.